I remember the way the wooden kitchen table seemed to hold the weight of generations. Its surface was etched with knife marks and faint stains from countless meals prepared with both love and urgency. My grandmother's house always smelled of something warm, something grounding, and something that seemed to whisper stories from the past. For me, the kitchen was not just a place where food was made. It was a place where wisdom simmered, where traditions steeped like leaves in hot water, and where time itself seemed to pause. And at the heart of it all were Grandma's recipes, which she treated less like instructions for food and more like keys to unlock the body as resilience and the spirit as comfort. She never measured things with cups or spoons. She measured with her heart, with the tilt of her wrist, with the knowledge passed from her mother and her mother's mother before that. I used to sit by her side, chin resting on my folded arms, and watch her pull jars down from high shelves, each one filled with dried leaves, roots, or flowers. She would hum softly, a tune I never recognized, as if she was singing to the herbs themselves. Sometimes I thought they listened, because whatever she prepared always seemed to carry not just flavor, but healing. One of her favorite sayings was, "There's a miracle in every leaf if you know how to invite it out." At the time, I didn't understand what she meant, but over the years I came to know that she believed in what she called miracle teas, simple infusions made not merely for taste but for transformation. They were not miraculous in the sense of magic tricks or instant cures, but in the quiet, steady way they could soothe a body, calm a racing mind, or remind you of the strength you had forgotten you carried within yourself. Among the many brews she made, none stood out more vividly in my memory than the one she turned to whenever she saw me pressing my palms against my temples, squinting through the haze of pain. I had suffered migraines since I was young. Sudden storms of light and sound that would leave me curled up in dark rooms, begging for silence. Grandma never rushed me to doctors, though she never dismissed them either. Instead, she would reach for a handful of fresh ginger, its knobby surface earthy and fragrant, and a bright yellow lemon that glowed like sunlight in her hand. She would slice them with practiced precision, drop them into a pot of water, and let the scent fill the room. She would say, "This is the oldest friend I know, ginger and lemon tea. For migraines and headaches, it has never failed me." The first time I drank it, I was skeptical. What difference could a simple tea make against the storm inside my skull? But as I sipped, the warmth spread through me, chasing away the tightness in my neck and softening the hammering behind my eyes. Maybe it was the ginger's fire, or the lemon's brightness, or maybe it was the way she watched me, her eyes full of patience, as if she were pouring part of her strength into me. Whatever it was, it worked. Not like a switch turning off the pain, but like a hand holding mine through the darkness until the worst of it passed. Years went by, and life pulled me far from that kitchen. I moved to the city, where the air smelled of asphalt and ambition, and where kitchens were often too small to be considered the heart of a home. I traded the slow rhythm of her wooden spoon for the hurried clatter of takeout containers and instant meals. But migraines do not care where you live, and soon they found me again, striking in the middle of deadlines, meetings, and sleepless nights. One evening, after a particularly brutal attack, I remembered her voice as clear as if she were in the room with me. Ginger and lemon tea. For migraines and headaches. I dragged myself to the tiny grocery store around the corner, bought ginger and lemons, and made it in my cramped apartment kitchen. As the steam rose, I felt transported back to that old wooden table, to the hum of her tune, to the way she never measured but always knew. And again, the storm began to ease. It became a ritual. Whenever life pressed down on me too hard, I turned to her tea. And soon I found myself seeking out her other recipes too, the ones I could remember. Chamomile for restless nights, mint for upset stomachs, cinnamon for warmth in the cold months. Each one felt like a conversation with her, even though she had long since passed. But it wasn't until I returned to her house after many years, sorting through her things, that I discovered the real treasure. Tucked into a worn, leather-bound notebook hidden behind a row of dusty cookbooks, I found her handwritten collection. The title page, written in her delicate, slanted script, simply read, "Grandma's Recipes." My breath caught as I opened it. The pages smelled faintly of herbs, as if they had absorbed the essence of every tea she had brewed over the decades. Inside, it wasn't just about food or drinks. Each entry was part recipe, part memory, part whispered guidance. For fevers, one page began, followed by instructions for a tea of willow bark and honey. For grief, another page read, offering a blend of lavender and rose petals. She had written small notes in the margins. Worked for your uncle after his long journey, or best when shared by candlelight. And on the page most stained with use in bold letters was the one I knew best, ginger and lemon tea, for migraines and headaches. I sat on the floor of her kitchen for hours, reading her words, feeling as if she were beside me again. The recipes were not just remedies, they were love letters disguised as instructions. She had understood that the body and soul are not separate, that healing required more than medicine. It required intention, patience, and care. I began to copy them, not just to preserve them, but to practice them. Slowly, I integrated them into my life, and then, almost without meaning to, into the lives of others. A friend came to me one night complaining of a pounding headache, and I brewed her the ginger and lemon tea. A colleague confided in me about her insomnia, and I sent her home with chamomile blossoms wrapped in parchment paper. I became in small ways the echo of my grandmother carrying forward her miracle teas, not as a cure for all things, but as a reminder that sometimes healing begins with something as humble as hot water and a handful of herbs. The more I shared, the more I noticed how people responded not just to the teas themselves, but to the stories behind them. When I told them these were my grandmother's recipes, passed down through generations, they listened differently. The tea became more than liquid in a cup. It became a connection to the past, to a tradition of care that stretched beyond my own hands. Now, years later, I still find myself reaching for her notebook when life becomes too heavy. Its cover is even more worn now, its pages more fragile, but it remains my compass. Sometimes I imagine future generations holding it, wondering at the handwriting, tasting the teas, and feeling the same warmth I felt as a child. And I hope they will know that behind every recipe is not just a cure for the body, but a story for the soul. Because in the end, that is what Grandma's recipes truly were. Not formulas, but fragments of love stitched into everyday life. They taught me that healing is rarely about grand gestures or expensive solutions. It is about remembering the simple things. The miracle teas brewed slowly on quiet afternoons, the way ginger and lemon can chase away a storm inside your head, and the way one person's care can ripple across generations. And whenever I sip that familiar tea, I close my eyes, and I hear her hum again. The storm outside fades, the migraine lightens, and for a brief, timeless moment, I am back at that kitchen table with her watching over me, whispering, "This, my dear, is how we heal."